Look. Look at this. Aren't they precious? I'm just so thrilled with them. I just love these little biscuits. They're drying. They're about halfway through their drying process now. And by midnight tonight, I think we'll be ready to wipe the little bottoms of them with a damp rag or cloth, and then to put the anise seeds underneath each one. I'll separate them out. They won't be so tight as this. They're only this way because of traveling. But see, they're not quite ready yet. The bottoms are soft, which is how they should be. But I'd like to see the sides become a little bit drier, and then they'll be ready to really use the power of that central little area to puff them up. You see, I think I explained this, but in case you weren't all there, the tops will be hard. They're already getting hard. Do you hear them? Hear that? So they won't grow because they're hard. But underneath, it will be soft, and the steam will build up and give them a little risen foot, and they will just be perfect. And the foot will be set in a little bit because the very edges will be also dry. So I love that idea, and I want to attain it if I can. You see here, I have this little paper towel. It's damp, it's wet, it's actually wet all the way through. And then the roasted seeds here of anise waiting to go on. So here's what I do. I wipe it on the little cloth, and then I take a little sprinkling of the seeds and put them right on that space, and then place the biscuit on top. Next one, same. And the same, and so forth. These just came out of the oven. See how they're all lifted up on their little feet? That's what springerly means. Jump up on your feet. They're hot. Do you see how the foot is underneath them like that? And it's in from the edge a little bit because we let the edge dry right to the inner edge there, so that the middle part is what jumped up, helped it to push up. And also notice that the tops of the cookies, none of them are baked. They're all pure white. Look at how jumpy they are. Do you see? They're like little pillows tipping around on their little ledges down underneath. And just a little bit brown on the bottoms. And notice that they don't stick to the parchment. They just pop right off. They're so I don't know, just easy in that way. Just pops right off. And now we have one with an apple on it and ready to close it. Look how pristinely white they are. And their little feet, footing, jumping up underneath them. Isn't it beautiful? I took a bite out of this one, and it's just how it's supposed to be. You see, the top crust is crunchy, and the bottom crust is crunchy. And inside, it's soft and cake-like, like eating a chewy anise cake. It's not crumbly, it's chewy, It's delicious. I'll take another bite. Mm. 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 It's so good. So you can kind of push the crumb down. It has a chewy taste. It's just absolutely beautiful. And these are little jumpies drying, cooling in the, and then I'll put them in this tin. We'll have another piece of apple, and they will be all quiet for about a month. You're here. Guess what? I have a few things to tell you about that have changed since we started this project. One is, do you remember at the very beginning, I talked about how much I love these intricate shapes that are formed by these molds, and that I had seen, even though the Springerly biscuits originally are always just the pure white, because it's quite remarkable that a biscuit can be baked fully and be pure white on the top. And so I think it's just part of the beauty, like fresh linen, you know, just without a stitch of color. And then I thought, but I'd seen since in modern times, people, and when you see in the shops, you know, all those colors, and it's just such a temptation to want to paint all those little details on those Springerly biscuits. So I thought, I'll do some painted. Maybe this time making them. But as I went through the process, I just became more endeared again to their original, their statement. It's just so strong and so powerful. And the other biscuits that I made, let's see, how does that work? Well, 2 of the 3 of them are painted, and one of them has other kinds of decoration, which I won't tell you about till I actually do it, because things seem to change a million times anyway. So it's not necessary to tell you something that is just a thought right now. But anyway, so that was one thing. And then the other thing is that, remember I showed you that square biscuit cutter that I have, about that big, that I squished to be a diamond? And then I used the mold that Richard made, which I've always used. I've always used that size when I make the Springerly biscuits. But then, after they were made, somehow they just seemed like big lummoxes. You know, with that frame over them, it extends the size of them quite exponentially. And so I thought, the other biscuits are going to be dainty little tea-sized biscuits, and then this big lummox amongst them, you know, just like, and so I thought, well, I can still give those to the patrons, but maybe just one, because it's sort of family size, and then some of the smaller ones, because I started experimenting with some smaller ones, because I had a little tiny biscuit press that Richard made, the same crest, our crest, but a tiny one, which I'd never used. And I thought, I'll try to figure that out. I'll use that. And then there was a smaller square cutter in the stack of cutters, you know, one inside the other, of square cutters, and it worked quite well with it. However, do you remember you had to kind of pull the thistle to elongate a little bit, because to fit with the diamond shape, and not have its leaves falling off to the outside of the diamond also. You know, they had to stay, you know, in there nice and tall and long. So it worked well. But then I went to this shop, and in Brooklyn, which I'd never been to before, I'd never even heard of it, but they have there, you would love it. I'll give you the information at the end of this video. Do you ever read the description? Frederick doesn't think you do. So we stopped putting my writings in the description, I think, at least temporarily. And maybe the description in YouTube is a little difficult to get to, I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll put in the description, or maybe even across the screen, you know how they do, the shop that I discovered. It's an old baker's supply house with wooden floors and miles of space and every kind of thing from every country in the world, practically, right there. And also a large area where they have all the little paints and colors, which, oh, it just makes you want to do it, you know, when you see that. But anyway, there I found something. Oh, I found a stack of biscuit cutters that were hexagon, which was the exact shape that the thistles needed, you know, the crest. And it was so perfect for it and had a scalloped edge, and oh, I just loved it better than the zigzaggy edge, you know. And and so I switched again. So I have now made 3 different big batches of springerly biscuits. So those patrons will be getting every different size and shape, and they'll be in on the fun of seeing all the processes that it went through. So here we go. I'm now going to show you, because I wanted to prepare you before you walked over to the table, that you're going to see different sizes and you're going to wonder, did they shrink? Oh, one more thing that I thought I should talk to you about before we go over and see my little lesson display. You're not learning how to pack the biscuits. We are going to pack the biscuits for shipping off to the patrons, but this is just for an interim period, a part of the process of making these biscuits. Some of you will definitely recall that we start out with the making of the dough. The next day, 24 hours later, we start pressing the molds, and then 24 hours at least later, depending on what they look like, is the baking period. And then after that, they go into the apple period. Now, people have heard of keeping foods over a period of time, especially cakes. They might put, sometimes people will wrap it in a, what is that, alcohol, a cloth, you know, like a cheesecloth, soaked in rum or some flavor, some type of alcohol that contributes to the cake and keeps it moist and tender until it's all being cured long enough to wait to eat. Well, with these cookies, you would never do that because you don't want them to touch anything damp, but you just need just a little whiff of mist of apple, fresh apple, packed in with them for 2 months. And during that 2-month period, it helps 2 things. One, the anise that's on the bottom, you know, the anise seeds on the bottom, the flavor just wafts up through throughout the cookie, and really gives it a wonderful fullness of that little tiny seed underneath. And then the other reason is because when they come out of the oven, and because they sit for that whole 24 hours to be hard, then you need to put them in this, pack them in tins, just for storage, not for sending to anybody. And put the apple, half of an apple or something in there, so that they can get also the tenderness of the crust, you know, that hard crust. It helps to kind of bind together. I can't explain it, but it makes it a little more tender, and it keeps the soft, spongy part inside nice and moist, whilst the two are kind of melding together. So, now we can go. Here they are. These are all the different variations that they've gone through. Okay, this one was the first one we made, remember? And it turned out beautiful, really. But it's the size of your hand, you know. It's a big biscuit, and they're on the thick side because they rise up, and there's quite a lot of substance to them. So I thought, you know, they did look a bit monstrous for what we were doing. And so I remembered that we had a little tiny mold that Richard had made, just like the bigger one, but I had never used it because I thought it was too small, and I thought that the detail wouldn't show up and all of that, which was not true at all, because I dug it out. I got a smaller little square out of my stack of biscuit cutters, of the square ones, and squished it to a diamond, and we came up with this size. And that's the size we made many of. And I just thought you'd like to see it. You know, you have seen them coming out of the oven, but it'd be fun to see them next to their big sisters here. Here. So you see the difference in the size. And I liked it so much better. I thought it was really beautiful. And it just was so dainty. And it fit with what the other sizes of biscuits that I was trying to kind of make into a whole set. Well then, after I went to that shop in Brooklyn, I found this wonderful shape, which was perfect because you didn't have to stretch the biscuit, the thistle, the crest, just as it was. There was room for the leaves and the top point and the bottom point, and it was just as if it was made for it. And those lovely little scallops, they're better to me than the minginess of the busyness of the other little zigzags. So isn't that perfect? I was so pleased to find that, and they rose so beautifully on their little feet, as they say at the Springerly Meads. Now, I have a surprise to show you, but you must promise not to tell the person that it's for. And I think many of the people watching will know who this is for. It's for somebody who gave us what they call a shout out in the world of, I guess, internet. I'm not sure how far that shout out goes, but anyway, it means telling the world that there's a person in YouTube or somewhere in the internet that they feel is important for their audience to meet. So this person was called the Little Blue Fly. And look what I found. And I used the bigger size, you know, these were stacking hexagons, and there were lots of them. And so a bigger size framed this up, the Little Blue Fly. And I'm making those just for the Little Blue Fly. So she'll have a box of those, and for her family. And I'm going to actually give her the actual stamp, the press, because I think she'll be able to use it for things, shortbread, or maybe she'll make Springerlies, or some other biscuits that are pressed biscuits. So that was so much fun. And these also rose up nicely. You see, maybe it's a little too close. Anyway, and if you see any little black spots, those are just some little wayward anise seeds, because I don't know if you knew this, but I baked most of them upstate, 5 hours drive each way, brought them all the way up with me on their cookie sheets, with us driving so carefully, being careful for them not to slide off onto the seats. They've been through a lot, because our friend Linda and her husband Lindsay have a much better oven, I mean, for detailed, particular, needs. And you know, mine works fine for pies and stews and anything else, really, but I felt more comfortable using her oven. And then we brought them back here in tins, and now we're going to pack them in tins with apples.